Hello, hey, what's going on? Hey,
Hey,
how are
round of
you? How are
applause, round
you?
of applause.
How's it
I'm good. How
going?
are you doing?
I
Well,
am
I'm
doing.
tired.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. We were talking about being tired, acupuncture.
Mhm.
That's the discussions that we all need right now. I feel like everybody's tired. Like the switch, flipping the switch back onto society, like after the year that we had, and everything just kind of coming back. Like, at least in New York, like New York feels like it just like whoop, switched right back on, like to nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just been an intense time, right? So New York, March of 2020, was like considered the epicenter, right, of all
Mhm.
of this, what's known as COVID. And so, kind of how things just shut down really immediately. And it was just like an intense time,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's still intense. So, yeah, New Yorkers, do what New Yorkers do. We just kind of like, we pick up and New York strong and tough and figure
Hey,
it out. But it's
hey.
definitely been intense. Hey, New York is in the
Let's
house.
go. Yes, yes, yes. I love speaking to other New Yorkers. There's always something like a distinct flavor to the conversation that gets added when you're from New York. It's just like
So
a such a
true.
cool place
It's
to
so
be at.
Exactly. I
But please do
agree.
give an
I agree.
introduction to those that don't know you. You have so many things that
Yeah.
you have done. We have so many things that I can't wait to speak about. But if you could sum up, who are you? If you could tell the chat in the
Yes.
stream.
So I am my motto or tagline in life is that I am all love with appropriate doses of rage. And that kind of speaks to all the things that I choose to do in the world. So I for the gamers, do community, and I love being able to create a community and a space that feels inviting and welcoming. And I hope to create that wherever I go. And the reason that it needs to exist is, stuff that really kind of pisses me off, which is how toxic it can be, how just like not equitable it can be to be a woman, or a person of color, Black person within the space, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I am one of the co-founders of the Gamehers. And then the other things I do in life are also centered around that. And I don't have I guess I don't know if anybody has. It's funny, like when I sit in rooms and people talk about not having a traditional path to kind of getting into gaming or the gaming industry, but I don't think anybody really does. I don't think there's any like real direct route to end up in this, in the gaming space. And so, um, yeah, so my background is pretty varied in that, I was a teacher, I was a principal, I used to coach leaders,
Mhm.
I've worked, I do yoga, like all of these different things. And so, yeah, I'm all love with appropriate doses of rage. And just like any New Yorker, if you piss me off, you'll know.
Hell yeah. I like that. The appropriate dose of rage because too much rage and you don't want to be
Yeah,
around that person. That person is liable to start acting
exactly.
crazy and you don't want to be around them. Appropriate dose of rage?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what's necessary. um
Yes, I agree.
so how did you get to co-founding the Gamehers and being the chief community
Yeah.
officer at the Gamehers? Prior to this, were you creating content or how did this all happen?
Yeah. So I would say that like lots of great ideas, it started over drinks. So cocktails were involved, and my good friend and co-founder Heather, she's just like, Verda, I had this idea. She was doing a lot of work in the toy space and working with Alcon, and like he created Pokemon, all these things, and went to all these meetings where people were talking about um, gaming is the next, it's the next big thing, and esports and like all these things. But it was rooms full of men and predominantly white men,
Hmm.
and it was like, you could count the number of women in those spaces on one hand. And so we became friends because our sons went to school together, elementary through high school, actually. And so we did a lot of work around at my school, my kids' school, around just having conversations about race. Heather's white, I'm Black, so hence our kids are both of those things. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of how we got really close. And so when this idea came to her, when she was just like, we don't see women represented in the people that make the most money. We don't see them, where are they as far as streamers? Where are they as far as like starting companies in this tech space? And so we said, why not us? And so we just did a lot of research and tried to really listen to the community about the direction that we were going to go. So as four of us that are co-founders, and that, you know, it started over drinks. I guess that's the best way to say that it started.
Hey, that's what's up. That's dope. And have you always had this like want to create communities and to create inclusive environments like this? Like, is this work that you've been doing all your life, or is this something that you kind of steered into that direction later on?
No, I've been doing it all my life. I am old. I will be 50
Nah, that's
in
not old.
February. So I'm about to celebrate my, it's not old, but it's older than I think a lot. But okay, I'll be 50 in February. And so my whole life from the time I was in college, I was picketing and, like, you know, being the president of the Black Student Alliance, or doing all of these things because, yes, like my whole life, even being a teacher was about creating spaces that were fair and equitable for everyone. So I think it's always been a part of who I am. And then I have just found ways to infuse and incorporate that into roles that I love and into things that I love. So yeah, it's always been my jam.
Hey, my wife Sundara Chan in the chat says you do not look 50 at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi Sundere. Hola de mente. To anybody in the chat, I'll remind y'all how it works. I try not to interrupt the speaker when they're talking. So if I'm just letting you not, if I'm not giving you a shout out and you come into the chat or anything, just know that at the end or whenever I get a time break, I will give you a proper shout out and say what's up, welcome you into the chat. Just I don't like to interrupt the guests when they're going. So can you speak a little bit about what the gamers are? Because what's it called? I know you have awards coming up November 18th. We're 9 days away, which is very, very exciting. So please do speak about that.
Yeah. So we are we're a brand, we are a platform, and in a lot of ways like a media company that amplifies and elevates the voices of women, of other marginalized genders, femme-identifying folks, and just creating a space for that. And so there's lots of different things that we do as a company, and one of them is the awards, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we create content that centers women. We are hoping to have some more in-person events where we can have spaces that center women, and I generally, I'll say, like, non-men. We invite and encourage men to be in spaces, but they're not the ones that are centered in those spaces. And we also have an app that's coming out that is also a place for just like kind of a really cool and non-toxic community, right? And so I think the two things that are really important to us is to state and name always. We don't deny, we kind of like head on address the fact that if you're a woman, you have experienced some, do we curse? Is it cursing allowed on your stream? I don't even know.
Hell yeah.
All right. Bullshit that happens. And there's a lot of just like trash that goes down in the lobby or all places, right? Or like when you're in game. And the majority of women actually will turn off their whole entire headset just to play, right? Because they don't want to deal with that. And that's just speaking on what happens for women, right? So like I have a son who's been gaming since he's 2, he's 19 now. And it's the racist things, not even knowing what he looked like, right? But like the N-word, like all the stuff that people will drop in there. And so we wanna be create a counterculture to that and a counter narrative. And so we are, you know, our app is kind of a place where we just want people that wanna like have fun and be supportive and maybe talk about hard things, but not have that be a place where it's always gonna be toxic. So we have an app coming out. Actually, it's gonna be launched in a couple of weeks. We're in beta right now, and that's coming out. And then our awards, and we have a collegiate network. So we're also just trying to also tap into places where where a difference can be made. And we can't just start with people that are already here. We got to like go and figure out what's happening for younger folks. And honestly, like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, part of why I'm part of Civics Unplugged is because I just think that they have so many answers. They're already doing this, already creating spaces that feel like so much more inclusive than things that I encountered when I was that age. So that's it.
They have a very, very interesting understanding of things because they have the access to the internet and just so much knowledge to be able to share share and be in these communities where you learn so much that I didn't even have. Like, I'm a millennial. I still remember pre-internet times, like just having a smartphone in your pocket and the access to all.
Imagine what I remember.
I go back to the dial-up, that noise, and like that connection of internet.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes.
Persona,
I go before there was even an internet.
Before I don't know how how was school back then? Because I had computers basically the entire time going through school.
Listen,
like,
there was, well, no, it was a typewriter.
Oh
I learned how to
God.
use a keyboard on a typewriter.
That's dope.
That's
though.
what
Skills,
it was like.
skills throughout the days.
It is skills.
And you've managed to keep
most
up
people can't
with
beat me on a typewriter.
And you've managed to keep up with the new digital skills. That's what's up. Persona,
I think
welcome.
it's really just.
Oh, my bad. What were you saying?
Persona. No, I feel like I don't remember, but it's cool.
It's cool. Persona, welcome. You were saying, I was just having this conversation about Twitch and streaming in general. Women are harassed just for being women and are objectified and stalked, etc., etc. And people do it even more because there's no repercussions for those assholes. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, two of the worst toxic traits, like, you mix competitiveness and the ability to be anonymous, and you throw that online, and you throw a bunch of, like, very hormonal young men into the mix, and then you throw women in there, and, like, yeah, it gets real nasty. And, like, I remember I played,
and it's
no, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. We have a delay, so you just go ahead.
Okay. No, I was gonna say, I remember playing online when I was like, 15, 16, and some of those lobbies, there was people that you had no idea who they were, and they would get mad. They would freak out if they lost. They would start, like, there was no line, like racism, sexism, homophobic things. They would just throw out whatever out there because, like, it's just like there's literally no repercussions or anybody, like, really monitoring that.
Yeah.
And so, are you a gamer?
Okay.
I think I heard you're not particularly a gamer, but your son is.
So I would always say I'm gamer adjacent, and it's really been interesting to kind of think about one. I do remember playing games like arcade games. I remember like literally like going to arcades. I grew up with mostly board games, but I do remember doing like, having an Atari, like Tetris, like all those like Frogger, like those things that came out, but I wouldn't consider myself a gamer. And that's also something that's important to like not even put that label in it. So just because I don't play all the time or that I'm not very good doesn't mean I'm not a gamer, right? And I think that that's what we need to kind of not label it so much. So I'm claiming that that I do game. I play more now because of the Game Hers than I have in a long time, and we're trying to just create a space where, what happened this past year is that so many more people actually embraced their love of gaming, or embraced that gaming is something that can actually help you in life, or just like didn't have anything else to do. It was like, let me download a game, right? Like, and so I think it's been a really cool time, particularly for people who have always gamed, to kind of see this other group of people embracing it in I think in ways that are positive, right? Being a principal of schools and also a mom, I think a lot of parents sometimes see games as negative, and they're like, you're just addicted to it. And yeah, I had boundaries for my kids, but I still felt like games were actually really great for them. I think that one, they can be stress relief, but also I think your mind is forced to create worlds or go into worlds that don't exist. And I think that's extremely transferable to life, because particularly given all the things that are happening in the world now and that have always been happening, we need people who can imagine something that doesn't exist in order for us to kind of like see a better future. So I am a gamer, and I suck at most games, but I'm getting better.
Hell yeah, that's all that matters. It's about having fun. At the end of the day, it is literally about having fun. And so when it came to, like, I know for a while there was a lot of conversation about violence in video games, and a lot of national discourse around the violence in video games. Where was your stance around that when that was kind of like the conversation that was going on?
So for me, it was that I think it's all age appropriate. So I kind of like would look at and watch games that my son specifically would play, and I did say like if he was I kind of looked at the ratings and I was like, you're not even close to that age. So I can't see you playing that game right now. So I kind of like followed that. I don't believe that any one thing in particular, whether it's music, whether it's video games, whether it's like videos that people watch, are the thing that will create that in you. I think being addicted to things is definitely possible. I think you could be addicted to video games. I think that some people can use it in a way that does not allow them to engage with the world. Um, that said, I think the goal is not to create people that don't play video games, it's to create people that know how to regulate their lives in a way that video games don't consume them.
Hmm.
So I don't believe that. I don't ascribe to the thing that something that is violent will make you violent in that sense, right?
Hmm.
That said, I think for me the biggest thing, or the thing that was always the hardest, was just the depiction of, or lack thereof, of Black people, of people of color, and women in games. So to me, that was the bigger problem: how women were objectified, how the characters were so like not developed enough, and those are things that I don't want either of my kids seeing, girl or boy,
Hmm.
son or daughter. Um, I don't want them. I kind of, those things actually feed what you might think is what how a woman should show up, or this is what this character is saying or doing, and that's like what I would ascribe to all like indigenous men, right? Because if we think about like how indigenous folks showed up in games, so those are the things that always kind of intrigued and worried me the most, more
Hmm.
so than the violence, because I just think, come on, like go to the movie theater, like turn on any television, turn on the news at 11 p.m. Violence is all over it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And see, I like that it's a nuanced answer and a nuanced response to it, because oftentimes like we always fall to the two extremes of just outright ban all video games, or just there is no problem here, let's not even address any of the underlying issues that might arise from video game addiction or anything like that. It's always like some extreme, and like I like when people speak with like some sort of nuance to things and say, there are obviously issues that arise from things that you need to look at, but it's not gonna, you can't just outright ban all video games for the violence. And
Yeah.
can you speak about the type of content that you're creating at the Gamehers?
Yeah.
Can you also speak about the
Yeah.
awards coming up?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we center women. So, on our website, we have things like career spotlights where we're trying to just highlight women that are in the industry. So, not just gaming or streamers, but like a whole various range of things. So, we have like lawyers that we've highlighted. We have people that have created board games that are women focused, people at makeup companies, all these things that are within the industry. So that's one thing. We have a podcast that had 2 seasons where we just brought Kylie Vernoff, who is the voice actor that does Susan Grimshaw in Red Dead 2. She was our host, and she just like,
Oh,
she's an actor, and so she brought on all of these like cool people that she knew from video games and from just Rockstar, but also just like a lot of different people. And so we did that
oh,
show,
that's
and
dope.
hopefully we'll pick up some more seasons of it. It was so cool. You should definitely, it's called Let's Play. It's a really, there's some really amazing things on there. Stephen Ogg was on. She like the whole, all the campfire girls, like there was who is it? She's one of the Overwatch characters. It'll come back to me, but there was like a ton of like really amazing people on
Hmm.
there. And the other content is just like through our socials, and like just really trying to engage people through that. And the awards that are coming up. So one of the things, we are always really just listening to and keying into what our community, whether it's on Discord or Instagram or whatever, is kind of talking about and what they're saying that they need. And one of the things, like before we even launched in March of 2020, and March of 2020, we're in 2021. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 2020, 2019, 2020. I'm like, so like time doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't even know what day it is, what year it is. So you can go and find that out. But before, we talked to like thousands of women just to ask them, women who game and women in the industry, like, what do you want? And the biggest thing was like, we just want to be celebrated. We want to be amplified. And so what better way to celebrate someone then to give them an award.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how the idea for the Gamers Awards was born. And we then just like thought about different categories, and then just we let it be all about the community. And so we as a company have nothing to do with it except for kind of once, like managing it. And then we bring together an advisory board and just kind of helping to support them to say like these are the winners. So on the 18th, November 18th, all of our winners will be announced, and the categories range from like best YouTube, Twitch, Facebook streamers of the year, to journalists, to community. Oh gosh, I have a pandemic puppy that's like eating the paper towel. Hold on one second.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Pup, what you doing? Welcome to anybody in the chat. Welcome tonight. Happy Tuesday. We are here with Verta Maloney and having an amazing conversation. Hey, what's up, puppy? I'm gonna have a compilation at the end of the year of all the guests who come on here and show me their dogs. Let's give it up for the puppo.
Like, dude, that's Murphy. Pandemic puppy season.
I love it.
So from journalism awards to best charity, best most inclusive organization, we introduced a rising star category this year to just like talk about people who were like up and coming within the space and industry. And so the awards are totally the community. We had over 9,000 nominations. And then we've had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of votes. And so it was a lot to manage. And that was like, I think we like doubled, almost tripled from last year. So we just really know that there's a need for it. And it was really cool to kind of go to places and talk to people. And they're like, hey, oh my gosh, my friend who's a game dev got nominated for an award, it's all women and non-men that got nominated, right? And so that's just so cool. So that's going to air at 7 p.m. on the 18th, and you'll find out all the winners. There'll be some cool guest appearances and stuff like that. So we're totally excited about it.
Oh, that is amazing. And we are definitely going to plug in all the links to that because that's going to be an awesome event. 9 days away. Has it been like, is this the first one? Is this the first awards that you've ever done, or is this like an annual thing?
It's an annual thing. This is the second annual. So we've only done it, like, this is only the second year of it. So yeah.
And
we're super excited.
So like, I look at all the things that you sent me in your bio. You have co-founded so many different organizations. Like, how does somebody go? Like, how do you go about creating the Gamers or any other community that that you've created? Like, what is it like to start that? Like, where do you even begin?
So for Thunder Reach and whoever said they'd love to watch it, we're going to stream it on our channel. We'll put those links in there. So where do you even begin? That is such a great question. So one thing I'll say is that I have always been involved in startups. Now, I can't even say the first thing I founded was in my 40s. Okay, so I think that the first part of doing it is following whatever it is that you're passionate about. I think that too often we are doing what's practical, and it's okay to do that, right, for a little while, but you need to follow your passions. And so the first thing I founded probably would have been an elementary school in the Bronx. So I was the founding principal of that, and we wrote a charter, and then we started hiring. We got approved, we got a budget, and we started hiring, and we just kind of went with that. I think that leaning into accepting that you don't know everything you don't know, but doing it anyway is like a big thing to kind of follow. As far as founding the Gamers, as well as a couple of another company called 45 Lemons that I founded recently, part of it is doing your legal due diligence. So like, make sure that if you have an idea or you have a name, like get it trademarked. Make sure that you or then you need to file for LLC status, and everyone just does that first. It doesn't mean that you'll be an LLC, but it's the easiest one to like file first, and then you decide whether you want to be a not-for-profit organization or for-profit. Actually, LLC is all for profit. You have to do a whole different process for not-for-profit organizations. And then once you do that, I think the biggest thing is just getting the word out there. So tell people in your life, don't be scared to share it. Get people to kind of like hype your thing up, because you also never know who might contribute, right? Like, or who has something that they can offer, whether it's like designing your webpage, or whether it's that they have money and they're like, hey, I want to give you this money. If you don't talk about it, then the answer is automatically no.
We have a question, but 1 second, Persona. I do want to get to that question. It's just it breaks off a little bit about what we're speaking about here. So last question before we get into that. Do you think that you have to have like a business mind state for this? Like, did you have any business background for doing any of this?
Right. I would say no, you don't. But you have to have people with business mindsets around you. So I would not, I've learned so much, and you have to be open and willing to learn and take the feedback. But if you're not, let's say that, like you didn't go to business school, or you don't have all of that kind of background, just make sure you have some people in your corner that do.
Yeah. Definitely. You're not going to be able to do everything. Yeah. You're always going to need a good team. In anything, you'll always need a good team. I do want to get to this question because I believe me and Persona have spoken about this before. So he says, as a Hispanic person, I sometimes wonder, what is the end game? Do you foresee or imagine a future where we don't label humans by X or Y like we did when we were younger, everyone on the same playing field? I actually was just recently listening to something where they were discussing the idea that of color blindness, essentially, like not seeing or labeling people by color. And I would love to get like your take on this, because I feel like I understand why color blindness is a bad thing, like what comes with that, and not being able to see the problems that are obviously associated with different demographics. But I feel like to the average person, they might not understand that. They might be like, what do you mean? That's like a good thing to not judge people by the color of their skin. So what is your take on this?
So I think it's a great question. I think that the part of it about being younger and that not being a thing is that for me, Verda, as a Black girl in America, it was just not a thing that was talked about, but it was definitely a thing, right? Like, I was called the N-word and spit on before. I have been like all these things, and I'm talking about from the 70s to now. So I'm just naming that in the history of this, it's not so much that it wasn't that people just saw each other as equal. It's just that there wasn't a conversation. We didn't have an open dialogue about the things that created inequities, particularly in the United States, but I think globally as well. I think that color itself, right, is a social construct, right? So people, it's like somebody just decided to make it up and decided to say that, like, if you are Black or of darker skin, we're going to put you and consider you as less than. It sadly is a made up thing that impacts us today, right? Just like money is made up. Somebody decided we're going to like give value to this piece of paper. Sorry, I'm just putting the puppy down. But we all get behind it and we use that money. And the same thing happens with this. I do hope that there's a time where the labels that others place on us don't become determiners of what may or may not happen for us in the world. So sadly, if we look at certain statistics, we can kind of just predict what will happen because the system is set up that way. And that I hope a future where people can just identify as who they are. That's just not the reality that we have right now. In order to get to and get at all close to what it is that you envision for the future persona, it requires us being honest about where we are now, honest about how we got here, so that we can then do some honest work of like undoing and dismantling this thing that is racism and oppression and sexism. We can't do it if we're not willing to just acknowledge and name it. I saw this meme recently that was, or it wasn't a meme, it was just like someone was having a little comment in there. It was on socials that kind of said, I'm paraphrasing, but if you are willing to accept the things that make you proud about your history and culture, then you must also accept the things that cause shame, because you can't have it both ways. So we can't say we're so proud and like all of this, but not naming the things that are not really, not really great. So there was a time in history where if I was considered 3/5 of a human. That's not the case today, but the fact that our history is predicated on the fact that I was considered 3/5 of a human, those things will ripple unless we acknowledge and name them, and that's the only way we can kind of uproot them. So I think that was a lot of words to give my answer to your question.
No, it's complicated questions require nuanced answers. Bowen, thank you so much for the host of the stream. And I just learned about the Tulsa massacres maybe like a year and a half ago. Like there are things about our history that I still, that, you know, maybe they were taught somewhere in my education and it was just like briefly glossed over and then we moved on to the next and it got forgotten. But there are so
they weren't taught. I guarantee it wasn't.
Definitely not. Like literally events like that, I just never learned about that. And you know, I feel like there are parts of this country that really did not learn about anything to do with that part of America's history, and that those are the people that kind of want to just be like, no, nothing, like, you know, nothing's going on. Why do we need to teach this? Why are we presenting this in education? It's because we didn't. It's like they're just not used to the fact that we should have learned about this, and we just never did.
Yeah. And it's I think it's one of the beautiful things about being in a time where we do have the internet, where we do have social media, right? Like, so you were talking about like, what was it back in the day when I was in school? Like we had Encyclopedia Britannica. Like we went to the library, we got an encyclopedia, we hoped that the thing that we were searching for was in there, and then it was a paragraph that was written like 6 years ago. Right? So we have this kind of benefit, right? There's a downside to it, right? Because anybody can get any information out there, but this is where, you know, we have to be kind of like critical thinkers and do our own research. But yeah, I think, yes.
Yeah, diss on CPU. Well, that's the
thing.
My
gosh, not diss on CPU. Yes.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like with it was so exponential, the access to information, that the ability to comprehend and to read media and to be media literate, that did not go in the same trajectory. Like, you know, so we had rapid increase of access to information, but then we didn't have the same amount of people just being taught how to dissect information, how to tell what a source is, how to just read media and how to tell for bias. And that's the reason why I think we have such a problem with misinformation. It's just, you know, it's really easy to share like mass propaganda at this point, which in the form of memes. It's extremely easy to just share whatever you want, and we were just not really taught media comprehension.
I think the other thing is that schools as they were constructed were not intended to do that thing anyway, right? So I think that's also what we have to kind of fight against. Schools were meant for people to just sit in rows and receive information, so you were not actually taught to question the stuff that was given to you, and the goal of that was so that we would create workers who would not question what would happen to them when they got into the real world, into the workforce, right? And so what we're doing, and what, you know, in the places where we're creating and like fostering and empowering brilliant minds, it's because we're actually fostering a different way of receiving information and a different way of thinking about things. So I think we also have to acknowledge that the system of public education, at least, and I think education more broadly in the United States specifically, but I think this could be argued globally, was not intended, particularly after the Industrial Revolution, it was not intended to create free thinkers. Like that was not the goal.
What would you change about education? I think I've seen you on a panel once before discussing the changes of education. And then can you speak about that, and what are your thoughts on the path, you know, college? Like, is college still as necessary? Has it become more necessary? Has it become like the only route to you know, a successful career?
Well, I'll answer the last one first, which is like absolutely not. I think that it's not the only path. I think that what it is that as it's been designed right now, it gives access. So it opens a door for you. So if you have that piece of paper, a door is open for you. I think the bottom line, though, is that you can literally get that piece of paper from anywhere. You can go to community college, you can go to a state college, you can do it online. Like, it doesn't have to be this, like, you know, a super expensive or super elite place. That said, you also may not need the paper, but in order to not need the paper, you need to be able to have the other paper, which is, you know, money. And that will allow you the opportunity to pursue your ideas, or to pursue options, or to say, you know what, I want to start a business. But you can't do that if you don't have the capital or the resources within your family to do it. So I think in theory, no, not necessary, but like there's just something about it. What would I change about the educational system? I mean, there's so many. I think fundamentally, I just think this whole idea of going to a building for 8 hours a day and receiving information in the way that someone stands up in front of a room and gives it to you is the first thing that I would change. I'm so saddened by the fact that we had a real opportunity with the fact that schools were shut down, and we realized that, hey, we could do some of this virtually. But instead of leaning into like what would be a way to create a hybrid or to do this, because some young people thrived in this moment of not having the pressure and the anxiety of like being in a school building. But we like kind of just like, I don't know, wasted that whole opportunity. And so to really lean into what it would be like to actually create learning that was, I don't know, not just being in a room. So that's where I would start with the change.
Do you think
I have so many? It's like way too many for
to
this
go
one.
all on one episode.
Go ahead.
Do you think it was just that there was more people that wanted their kids back in the school system? Like, I feel like anytime I would turn on news, it was kind of, the news was slanted in a way where it was like, parents need kids to go back because, you know, they're struggling at home with no childcare, and this is very, very difficult. And there seemed to be just more of a push in the conversation to get the kids back into school no matter what. Like, sometimes, like, before we even had the right information.
So, Alan, I do not watch the news. I only read my news. I don't watch the news for this very reason. I think that you have two sets of data that just don't match. The first being that I think they call this the Great Resignation. Like, so many people just like quit their jobs, and not just people like, not fired from their jobs, like literally like, I'm not doing this way anymore. So you have this data that says that a bunch of people like resigned and quit their jobs. And then you're trying to juxtapose it against this comment that all these families are like, I need childcare for my kids. It just doesn't add up, right? That doesn't add up. So what I believe is that, yes, there's definitely been a push to get us back to normal. I'm going to use normal in quotes because I don't think that it was necessarily good. But there's a definite push to do that because it's, who said it? It's money talks. So persona, like, right, this is about money. It's people's jobs. It's about unionized positions. It's about like what happens if it's about, and let's not even go into like what it takes to educate a child. Who's providing the school lunches? What's going on with transportation? What's going on with like, all of that is money, right? Yeah. And so right now it's just like this really precarious thing that people don't know, like, you know, they don't have another solution to it. Tax dollars go to school. So if you're not at school, then then people are paying taxes are going to be like, well, then what are you doing, right? So I don't think that that narrative is true. I think that narrative was necessary. Do I think that schools should not exist? No, not necessarily. I don't think that. I just think that we have an opportunity to rethink them. It's 2021. Like, come on. How are we still doing school like this? This doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense to me. And that we were able to open the walls of classrooms and like finally say like, oh, I can talk to someone in China right now about this project. But before this pandemic, like so many people, the pandemic, that's COVID, that is, were against it. They were like, what is wrong with you? And so I just think we have to think, in order for school, though, to not be necessary, or college, let's say, in the way that it is, we have to give access to those that the system has historically marginalized. And that would be Black, Indigenous, and people of color. That would be women. Like, we got to give access, and access means money. You got to give money so that people can take a gap year, so that kids can say, I want to spend 2 years just doing this. Like, I want to pursue this project. Why shouldn't they be able to? Right. But the thing is that a lot of times it's money that you're not able to. And if you can get like a decent scholarship to college, it gives you a little buffer to kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? And then I'm not saying college isn't for everybody. We need the people that want to go and study the hell out of something and then like go into the world and do it. We just need to open ourselves up to more possibilities.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, we do. It almost felt like it was like absolutely necessary. It felt like for me to go to a university right after high school. Like, don't take any break. Like, I remember some of my family would say, oh, like, even if you want to just take a year to work, like, you're never going to go back. You're going to get a taste of what earning money's like, and then you're never going to go back to school, and that's going to be it. But it's like I rushed to go into school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I switched majors. I ended up not doing something that I wanted to do, and then like now I'm strapped with student loan debt, and it just felt all so fast.
What was the thing? What was the thing that you didn't do that you wanted to do?
No, so I switched. My bad. I think I misspoke on that. So I wanted to just take more time. Like, what I'm doing right now is not what I studied. It's just how I ended up here afterwards through years of unpaid internships. Whereas if I was a little bit older during that transition of deciding, hey, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, I might have been able to get to this point without all that time where I was, doing unpaid internships while also working 2 part-time jobs. Like, it could have saved me a lot of trouble from, if I had just gotten a little bit more time to figure out at 18, like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life?
Exactly.
Yeah, and my wife said still, like, even till to this day, like, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's wild, and I think that it's gonna take more conversations, more people having conversations like this. Why I love kind of this this moment of social media, of streaming, is that you have all of these like smaller worlds and communities that we can all get access to, and like start conversations that wouldn't have necessarily happened before, right? Like for me, it was like telephones and snail mail, like pen pals from overseas, and you waiting for weeks to hear from that person because you can't call them because you can't afford that. But like, and so now the ways that we can, and like, this is what we need to have is conversations, and like for people to hear your story, to understand that, to really, and I put in there, like, our brains are not fully formed at 18. Like, brain research out there is like research that we didn't have 20 years ago. So why not use it? It talks about how teenagers shouldn't even be at school at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's too early. It's like biologically proven that their just whole sleep cycle is different. So why are we starting school at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning? It's just stupid. And it's also like, it's just counter to anything that we're saying that we really care about. If we really care about kids, we would actually have them start way later in high school, because in middle school and high school, because it's just been proven that actually they're more productive. And like the fact that they sleep all the time and we slept all the time, it's not lazy. It's literally like what our body's going through requires it. And so we need to like use that information. So I think it's just really, yeah.
I thought the 7 a.m. like start time for school always like kind of correlated with they're just getting us ready for the work day. Like they're literally getting us ready for a 9-to-5 work lifestyle. And like, that's what sucks about, I feel like a lot of companies, at first I had a lot of high hope. I was like, businesses are going to learn to like create a hybrid environment. They're going to be more flexible. They're going to care more about work-life balance. But, and you would see all these businesses come out and be like, yeah, our staff is super dedicated. Even when they're at home, like things are still going well. They're working so hard. And then the minute that they got the chance to be like, okay, now people are vaccinated, get back in the fucking office. It's like they didn't learn anything. And that's what kills me. I'm like, damn, we really could have just like started to focus more on work-life balance and like realizing that this 9-to-5 block that we do is not necessarily when we are our most productive. Like there's other ways that people work, but man, it kills me when I think that like, we didn't learn anything.
I know. Well, I mean, and I think it's for those of us that have the ability and access to kind of like push that, right? So it's, they call them essential workers. I call them sacrificial workers, like because we sacrifice so much on the backs of those that are quote unquote essential. Tested everything, like put them out and like put them in risk's way, like all of that. And I think they often don't have the ability to not go to work or to say like, fuck this job. But those people that do need to start saying that, because that's the only way that we're going to like push towards like not having it be about, okay, this 9-to-5 job, this thing, this is the only way to do it. I just think that there's like so many other ways to exist in the world. The other thing that it requires though is that we redefine success, right? Like, so because you really, everyone doesn't have to be a gazillionaire. Like we don't all need to build rockets to go into outer space. And those of us that are doing them, I don't even know if we should be doing that, but that's a whole other conversation. But meaning that there's like so many other uses that can be used for that money. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't explore other planets, because I'm down with that. I likely won't ever go because I'm too scared, but other people that want to go. But all of that to say, we need to, how do we redefine what success means, and how do we reclaim that being happy is part of that, right? And so what does it mean to be happy? What would it take for you to be happy? Like, how much do you need to be happy?
Mhm.
How much do you need to, and like, what are the things you need and want in your life for that to happen? So I just hope that that's just something that I hope to instill in my children, something that I hope to instill in like the kids that I've worked with when I was principal. It's like, that's just as important, right?
Mhm.
How you want to be is way more important than what you want to do.
Mhm. And the relationships that you create, straight up, some of the most important things that you could
Mhm.
do, just leaving great impressions on people. Persona, yeah, big shout out to the nurses,
Mhm.
doctors, caretakers during the times that we had.
Right?
Yeah, anybody who's out there who's had to be out there, big shout out, big shout out. A question.
Mhm.
So in the last like
Mhm.
year and a half, things have been real tense. You could say that it was even more tense. It's been like pretty tense even before 2016, let's say. Have you had any friends or colleagues that have wanted to have a conversation about race, but have maybe felt a little nervous about bringing things up or saying something that might be wrong? Has that been something that you've encountered?
Absolutely. I want to say 1000% yes. I feel very much that there's like fear is stopping people. And I think confusing holding people accountable with cancel culture is stopping people. Um, and so, yeah, and I think that one of the best ways to kind of move through that is with people that are close to you. And practice, right? Because you can't talk about race if you've never talked about race. You can't talk about gender inequality if you've never talked about gender, right? You can't talk about sexism and harassment in the workplace if you've never talked about sexism or harassment in the workplace. These conversations have to be had. And so I think that for those that are like, I don't want to bring it up, I feel like I might say the wrong thing, I think you can start off with that. I don't want to bring this up, I think I might say the wrong thing. And that person is going to let you know whether this is a conversation to continue or not,
Hmm.
right? I always ask, I always tell people, ask permission. Say to someone, like, I really want to talk about this thing. Are you in a space to receive this?
Hmm.
I really want to have a little bit of a conversation with you about race, but I'm scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing. And I don't know if you feel like you can hold space for that conversation right now. Ask people for, for their permission to do it, and do this with, yeah. And I think it's just like any other muscle. Um, you gotta, you have to build it up.
Mm. Yeah, I
And,
imagine, because I imagine there are people that want to be allies, but just don't know how.
Mhm.
Might not know how to get
Yeah.
involved. Might not know exactly what, when to step back and let, people of color take the lead and kind of be the center of the stage. In your experience, what has been the best and like the best way to communicate some of these ideas and these thoughts and these conversations without letting people get real defensive? Like what has been the best way for you to just communicate and to have a dialogue without people getting real defensive, real emotional, and kind of like feeling like they're attacked or something?
So I think the first thing is that I can't control anyone but myself. So if you feel attacked by something I say, like, I can't control that. I can control how I enter this conversation. So I say that because most of this starts with you just starting to do your own work, right? So before, like, okay, so you're not ready to have a conversation, like, do your own work. Google is free 99, and Google got a lot of resources out there. Have so many places that you can go before you even ask a person. So that's like goes back to just what we were talking about before, right? So first, start with yourself. That's what you can control. The second thing there is that for me, just to be really clear in my work, I am not I'm actually not trying to make people comfortable. I think that it is not a comfortable conversation for many people. So I just accept that, and I just like lean into it. And I tell people, if we're going to talk about this, you may experience discomfort. Are you okay with that? And understanding that discomfort all things, not just conversations about race. Just like, let's just talk about like something that you really want to pursue in life, whether it's like your physical fitness, whether it's just like, I really, I don't know, I want to get this degree. You're going to have some uncomfortable stuff happen. And on the other side, like I don't know, there's this saying, I always try to do sayings and I'll mess them up, but like right after, like at the point of, right beyond your discomfort is like your next kind of success, right? So as soon as you can get through and past that. And so I think it's just naming that it's going to be uncomfortable for people. And then the last thing is that I am not here to have any conversations with anyone that put my humanity and right to exist into question. So if that's already like you starting from there, then Verda is not the person that you really want to have this conversation with. And that's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Hey, straight up, yeah. And I feel like
like, all right.
That's what it is. I feel like, yeah, a lot of people, they genuinely do have questions and they want to have a conversation. They just don't know how to or where to start. And then there are people that are just literally saying wild shit. And then the second that you call them out on it, they're just like, oh, whoa. What do you mean? What, I can't say what I want to say. And it's like, no, you fucking can't say that.
Exactly. Exactly.
But so you also you've done a lot of work with kids and trying to basically raise more leaders in Generation Z. How do you get them to care about stuff like this in a world that seems so polarized? It seems like so tense. It often seems like no progress gets done because things are often at gridlock. How do you get like young kids to really care about issues like this?
I think that I don't have to get them to. They do. I think that even if we were to all just like think back to when we were like 13 and angsty, it's because you care about stuff like, oh, like everything is everything, like the whole entire world is so many things. I don't think it's about getting them to care. I think it's about, one, creating a world that is just like not so fucked up so that they can actually do the things that they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it's just about providing the space for them to empower them to like figure out how to like make it happen, right? That's the thing that I think is hard when you're younger. Like you don't know like how to set goals or how to like, get people to like back your idea, or how to say like get this internship or write a grant. Like those are kind of like tactical things, but they care. Like there's hundreds of kids that are in the fellowship. We have a fellowship at Civics Unplugged, and across the globe. Like we get on calls every week. It's and it's hundreds of young people between the ages of like 15 to 19, and they care. And so it's not that. I think that what is hard for that age band, and particularly like below the age of anything that's legal. So you can't vote, can't like go out and party, you can't like, you can't run for office.
Yeah.
So
you're like kind of a person.
Then you're like, okay. Yeah. And also then you care about stuff, but then you can't actually do something that impacts it. So it's kind of like figuring out how to channel that in that time and in that like age of their lives. And just, yeah, they cannot do it on their own, and they shouldn't. Like that's why we all exist at the same time on the planet. It's supposed to be intergenerational. Like, well, come on, right? But it's so much that we're like leaving for them to kind of figure out. It's not supposed to be that way.
What would you say to people, because I imagine this is a thing, parents or otherwise, who say, kids are too young, they shouldn't be being taught, things about race or about politics. We should leave kids out of this. What would you say to that?
Well, obviously I would say you're speaking about specifically white kids then, because if you're Black, if you are a person of color, you can probably name when you first realized that your race mattered, and it's probably before the age of 10. So if I am gonna birth and bring into this world a child who is able to actually experience and encounter it before they are 10, then your child who will never experience and encounter it can definitely talk about it. Because I say this all the time when I do sessions, like no one has ever died in any of my sessions talking about race, but a whole bunch of people have died because we refuse to have conversations that are meaningful about race. So you can't have it both ways. So
hey,
That's my answer to that.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the people that hide behind that, it's kind of like they don't ever want to have the conversation. They don't want this. It's not like an age or anything. They
Yeah.
just literally don't want to have the conversation. Period. Ever. And they just kind of hide
Yeah.
behind the fact that they're
Yeah.
kids.
I think I think the other thing that's going on here is that if and when we start talking honestly about the things that happen, like you mentioned Tulsa, um, and Black Wall Street, and if we start talking about that, then we have to then actually start unpacking who did that and whose ancestors and legacy did that. And I think that there's actually a lot of fear around that being what becomes like the truth. And I am not here for people to sit in a place of constant and persistent like shame and guilt, because that's not serving anything. But understanding that and that that's part of your legacy means that you can now say, how will I change that? How will I name that? Like, I benefit when I talked about money and like people, it's not even just cash money. I've been around people who are not like millionaires, but like have said to me, well, my mom bought my first apartment, or, my family decided that, they put all this money aside for me, and then this is what I was able to do with it. Or they bought, whatever, all these things. That's like, that's capital. And those things, in many instances in the United States, were gotten off of like the backs of a bunch of people in really vicious and brutal and violent ways. And naming and acknowledging that, I think there's a fear that once we start talking about it, then we have to also start talking about that. And that's what I think is also there. It's just true.
Mm. And so platforms like Twitch and Discord, they're amazing for creating
Mm-hmm.
communities. I like before finding
Yeah.
these, I never really sensed that sense of community from like YouTube or anything like that. It's really on Twitch and Discord that I found it. But there is also the negative side. During the hate raids, did you have any experiences or heard any experiences through the gamers during that little period? I don't know if it's over. I did a whole bunch of like stuff on the back
Yeah.
end that was supposed to block like tens of thousands of them, but I know that there
Yeah.
were people, and they were targeting specifically the hashtags of LGBTQ, of any other people of color hashtags. Do you have any experiences that happened during that time, or know of any?
Yeah, I didn't. I have like, and I think it's just because like the people that moderate for me are amazing, and so I am like really lucky that I didn't. And if I did, I would never even of it. Or I would definitely say that during our awards last year, we definitely saw some stuff popping up. But again, like it would be there for just a quick second, and we have like our moderators that are really, really amazing. That said, yes, we have known people in our community that have experienced it, and I think that the sad reality is that this has been going on for people like for a long time, even before it became so public, right? And so, organizations like Black Girl Gamers, or even like Latinx in Gaming, like they are created because these things were happening within the communities, right? And so um I, I just think, and it's similar to this moment that was, 2020, when we also had this reckoning, if you will, around all of the like violence and the Black bodies that were killed and slain. That's been going on forever. It's just a flashpoint. And I think that these hate rates are just a flashpoint. That's been going on in these spaces for quite some time. If you are Black, if you are a person of color, you know what I mean? If you are a member of the LGBTQ community, like it's been going on for like a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that some of the back end things are helping. I think that it put conversation to the fore. I still just don't think that the major things that should be done are being done. You know what I mean? Like I think there's like a lot of lip surface being given, if you will.
Yeah. In terms of just progress on social issues since last year, kind of, the wake of George Floyd's murder, the murder of Breonna Taylor, do you feel like we've had substantial progress or change? Anything that like, you could feel like, okay, we're actually on the right path here?
Ooh, it's a big question. And it's, I think that no. And in spaces, I feel like it was a very performative period of time. And right now is where we're seeing the kind of whether you truly did or truly are about change. The place where I will say that yes, that I've seen it is I do actually feel like this moment in time for Black, Indigenous, and people of color kind of reclaiming some stuff that has like always been theirs and their right. And even this conversation about should we go to college, like all this, like the right to just exist and be happy. I feel like I have more people in my life that are talking about that and like embracing that. And I think that's a beautiful thing, right? I think that someone had said in the chat, like, no one else is going to save us, right? Like we got to save ourselves. And part of that is accepting like that we deserve happiness, we deserve abundance and wealth and like all of those things. And how are we going to collectively do that? So I feel like in that I've seen more. I think that I do think that too much of it was just performative. Like if I saw like a whole nother, I don't want to see another statement written about we stand with da 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 da. I want to see you change your board of directors. A stat that I did see recently was that I think we've had more Fortune 500 companies bringing on like C-suite level people that are people of color, which is great. But will they last more than 3 years? Questionable, because you're bringing them into a toxic environment. So, yeah, I think for me, it comes down to what I said before, this definition of success. And for me, it's about all people thriving. And in order for all people to thrive, we have to really focus on those that we have just been, that have been struggling and have been put in a place to struggle. And when I see those pockets of people saying like, you know what, no, we don't have to do it this way anymore. I want to be happy, like get in therapy, like, taking care of myself. Like, how do I do that? That there's promise in that for me. And that's what I try to lean into, but I feel like a lot of lip service. How do you feel?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, my friend in the chat wrote, Trump isn't president, it's time for brunch. It's kind of like a joke on, like, there was a lot of people who thought, okay, I voted for Biden, Biden won, that's it. All the issues are done, like, back to brunch. And that is definitely not what people should do. Like, stay active politically, stay active just just aware, just know what's going on. Like, don't just go back to being like, all right, well, I voted, now I'll go to sleep for the next 4 years, and when it's time for the next election, I'll be back.
Right. And like pick your, and the thing that's hard, right? And I think this is what they want us to do. It's like so many topics. What do I pick? Like pick the 3 things that are just really important to you, and know that can change over the course of your life, but like what 3 things are like really important to you? Yes, local elections matter so much. Like, so what's important to you? Pick those things and like drill down locally, know about them nationally, things like that. I know a lot about very few things. I know a little about a lot of things, and there's things that I stayed focused on. And I really made sure, like, for me, it was always about, you asked that question, like, has my whole life been kind of about I don't know, providing spaces that were equitable? Yes. Like I kind of was like, yes, that's been my thing, right? And like it's broadened a little bit as I've grown in my own work and understanding the intersections of it. But yes, pick 3 or 4 things that are so important to you and just keep at it. Because you're right, it's not brunch, no time for that.
And I've seen, like, I've looked at like Google Analytics, like you could type in like a keyword, and you'll see like, things that pop up, like critical race theory will be something that is literally just like a blip. It'll go up for like a month or 2 and then just back down to nobody speaking about it again. And it's almost as if like, that's what gets me so discouraged, is it feels like nobody actually wants to speak about issues and solve anything. They kind of just want to dunk on each other, just kind of like pick a side where it's like, okay, this is what my side thinks and I have to be completely against what your side thinks, and nobody ever finds the solution until the next thing that takes up people's attention comes up. And that's like the saddest thing to me, is like you'll see these things that are supposed to be like key issues, and then people just stop talking about them when they're no longer, I guess, the flavor of the week.
Yeah, that's what they want.
That's what they want. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So like oftentimes, like I'm like, damn, I don't even blame people, because like living here in New York, we know that it is extremely easy to just fall into the cycle of I'm working. When I'm off that subway, I don't want to think about anything. My brain is shut off. I just fell asleep for 40 minutes on the subway. I'm going home and I'm not thinking about anything. You know, we fall into these habits where we're just so tired and we work so much that like we want those moments where we could turn on reality TV or something that's just like super easy to consume.
And we deserve it, right? Like, I'm not saying not to do that, but then you got to figure out, well, then how do I incorporate these things that are important more into my life so that it's not something that's like an after effect? So whatever that is, like, how do I do that at work? Or how do I find something to like volunteer that is on the way home? Because I know for me, once I'm home, I'm not going anywhere. So how do I find those things and like connect with those people? And I do think it's this too. How do I follow, like, even if it's minimum, if you love to be on Twitch all the time, then diversify who you follow. Like, that's one step that you can make. You can make that across all your platforms. You can make that a goal, right? Like, that I'm going to diversify who I follow. And diversify, I'm using that term because it's broad. I'm not telling you what that means for you. It means that, how do you do that? You can do it there. Diversify what you choose to binge watch. Like, think about like all of the stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of ways that you can actually bring these things and incorporate them into, I think, your everyday life that'll have large impact.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Curate your feeds. Like, people oftentimes will complain like, oh man, I hate what's on my news feed. I'm just like, well, change what's on your news feed then. Start following different things.
Exactly. I saw this thing once that said, or someone was saying like, for like a first date thing should be to like share your TikTok For You page.
And show each other like, this is what I watch.
Show each other like, this is my right, like, cause you know the.
Oh, I'm sorry. You keep muting.
These are not. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, because the For You page is not necessarily what you watch, but it's the algorithm is recommending based on what you watch. So could you imagine? That could tell you a lot of things. You'd be like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need a second date.
That'd be a good dating show. Just like having two people show each other what they watch. It's like, why does this keep coming up for you? Why do they keep recommending this?
No. What are you doing on TikTok? Like, what the hell is happening here?
Because you could find anything.
Oh, it's wild. It is so wild.
Can you let people know how they can get involved with the gamers, how they can get involved with any of the other organizations that you've co-founded?
Absolutely. So the Gamehers, it's TheGamehers and all the places. So anywhere you want to go follow us, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, anything. I would say follow Twitch and Twitter first, and you'll get all the updates pretty quickly in those two places. And that's where the awards will be streamed live on the November 18th at 7 p.m. I'm actually co-hosting with Nars, and that's going to be fun and exciting. I've never co-hosted an award show before, so that should be really interesting. And then I feel like if you want to find all my other things, just like literally Google Verda. You might have to do Verda M, but there's not very many of us in the world, and like everything in the universe will pop up for me. Googled myself, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting. But yeah, so you can find me at Verda or at Verda Maloney and spaces as well. So those are the two easiest routes to get there.
I will say, when I was looking you up to do my research beforehand, there was a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's stuff at you at conferences, you on panels on Zoom. There's a lot of content out there. Podcast appearances.
I'm so scared. I never listen back to stuff because I kind of like hate hearing myself talk, but yeah, I'm scared for what's out there.
Hey,
is it all good stuff?
Yeah, of course. Okay, no, it's great content.
You never know.
It lives on forever. Good content will live on. Verda, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you so much coming on here and talking about these issues. You bring a great perspective to it. I think it's amazing what you've done in creating these communities, and it was a pleasure to have you. I'm definitely going to host the channel the night of the awards because that's going to be amazing. That's going to be so awesome, and it must feel so good to see all this hard work culminate and just end up in this night of great excellence.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's been really fun.
Hey, and my wife says, love what you do. So yeah, we will definitely be watching that night.
Yay! All right, y'all. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much. Have an amazing night, and we will definitely speak soon.